AI has really taken the whole world by storm. I think you guys all know this, and I think that's one of the reasons why we have such a full room here tonight, because I think everyone's really interested, especially on the healthcare side, and then as we get into oncology, what exactly is that going to do for us? The problem as I see it is we have, and this is sort of what I view as our North Star in our data department at Tennessee Oncology. I think Andy over at Oncology sort of has the same sort of guiding principle. There's so much data now, right? Like we've got these EMRs, we've got these ancillary systems, and they're just collecting data on top of data on top of data. And then of course we've got all the unstructured data that's coming in via the faxes and things like that. And there's just thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of data for every single patient that we have. And in this room, we've got some of the smartest people in the country, physicians, PhDs, PharmDs, et cetera. And you could go all the way to some of the smartest people on earth, and none of us as humans can go through all that data in any, short amount of time, make any sense of it, and then do something with it, right? And so my North Star in our data department at TO has been, how do I get the relevant data in front of the physician at the point of care, right? They're having to go into the record. They're having to find path reports that have been faxed. They're having to look for biomarkers, all of this stuff just to make decisions on the patients. They only get 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes if they're lucky with these patients in a room. They just don't have the time to go through all those thousands and thousands of lines of data. So that's sort of where I see the problem, and I'm hopeful that, is AI the answer? Sorry, they've got some animations here. So, trying to get it to the doctor at the point of care. How are we going to do that? So is AI the answer? I think that's the question that we're trying to figure out, not just us, but all of healthcare, oncology specifically. We have unique challenges in community oncology I'm going to talk about as well. I know we have some academics on the panels. They could, I think, help enlighten us on some of the challenges they're seeing. But I think the community stuff is really going to resonate with the room. Just real quick background on AI. I'm not going to get like super nerdy on you guys, but artificial intelligence was coined by Dr. McCarthy from Stanford University back in 1955, and it was a simple little definition: the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. It has since evolved, especially in the last 5 years, and most of the AI leaders and coders, they're trying to mimic human intelligence now, right? Like it started just, could we just make an intelligent machine, but now we're trying to mimic human intelligence. We use AI every day. Most of you probably, have done in the last hour, just looking at some of the things that we're already being exposed to as far as AI. So Siri, I'm sure just about everyone in here has an iPhone. That is an AI-driven application that's supposed to mimic human interaction. There's something called the Turing test. I'm not sure if you guys, again, try not to get super nerdy with you guys, but basically the question is, can AI make you think it's human, right? And so Siri and Alexa and those types of AIs, that's sort of what those companies are trying to do. When you talk to Siri and she gives you all those nice little quaint answers and makes you laugh, the idea is to try to make you forget that she's a machine and that she's more human. Now, I don't know why we would want them to seem more human. I know when I use ChatGPT, and they sit there and continually apologize for not answering my question when I scold it. I'm like, hey, do this for me, and they do something like, that's not what I asked you to do. Oh, I'm so sorry that I didn't meet your expectations. What can I do to make this better? And that's the moment where I'm like, well, that's definitely not human-like, right? Because if any of you guys have gone out to eat lately and inevitably they got something wrong, right? And is that waitress saying, oh, I'm so sorry, what can I do to make it better? No, it's your fault that they got it wrong, right? So anyway, and then, we got Google Maps, so we definitely don't need to get in. We all know that Google is just, data mongering everything, and who knows what they're doing. And Netflix, uses AI to come up with your suggestions, right? They build interactive algorithms that when you watch these shows, they're like, oh, well, maybe you'll like this one. They make the recommendations. What are some of the other fun things that we're doing with AI? Well, this is my friend Steven. And this is one of his better pictures you can find on the internet if you guys just Google him. And so, it's kind of blurry. The hair's a little bit messy, right? Maybe it looks like he might have been right out of residency, a little Bieber action going on. So, AI, how could we make AI make this better? I don't know. I think that's a pretty good rendering of you, Steven, don't you? That's how I view Steven when I think about him there. Right. Then we've got our big boss lady. Where'd she go? So I asked AI to give me an image of Natalie in my image, and this is how I view Natalie. She's our queen. She's royalty, right? So real quick before I get into some more of the AI stuff, I have a joke I was gonna get everybody warmed up with. If you guys were here last year, remember I started with a pretty good joke, right? It is relevant, I promise. When I ask the question, you're not going to think it is, but it is. What do you call a blonde? Hill, I saw Kate somewhere. What do you call a blonde that dyes their hair brown? Artificial intelligence. Yeah. I did not make that up. I don't know who did. I found that if any of you guys know the rabbit hole that is Reddit, I got that off of Reddit. So anyway, just figured add a little levity to what we're doing. AI buzzwords. I don't know how much you guys sort of have been reading articles or seeing it on the news, but you got all these AI buzzwords that keep going around, and I sort of made this little map here of like tons of different buzzwords that I hear. And when I see AI talks, I think everyone has good intentions, but no one's really saying a whole lot. These buzzwords just keep getting repeated over and over again. I probably will say a couple of them as well because they are relevant. But you guys have probably heard things like natural language processing, right? Machine learning, that's a big one that I think everyone, especially businesses, are really, really interested in. Large language models, these are things that I know that you guys hear. But what do they all mean? Depends on who you ask, right? Everyone has a different definition of this. Deep learning is a new one that has become very, very popular, and even your Stanford people, your Brown people, they can't explain what deep learning is. They give you their definition of it, but you won't know. You'll feel dumber from having talked to them. So what is AI? This is my definition of what AI is. Take it for what it's worth, but this is what I think. It's taking the thousands of data points that we have on each patient, and what I explained to you guys, we can't expect the physicians, we can't expect any of our caregivers or anybody to go through this manually, and getting them to the doctors at the relevant parts of it, to the doctor at the point of care. So the question that we're leading to is, are we ready for AI? And this is where I think the community oncology space and the academic space start to have a pretty big divide. Community oncology, I believe, if I look this up, I got this from, I think, American Cancer Society. Community oncologists care for 80%. And Stephen, you may know this statistic off the top of your head, but 80% of the cancer patients in the U.S. So while academics tend to lead the way in this, they're not the ones caring for the patients. We are, right? So, and the things I'm about to say, I can only speak for community oncology because I've not ever worked at an academic institution. Just a quick number for you. I got this from Dr. Patton. I thought I saw him at one point. There are 7,500 community oncologists in the U.S., which that's a crazy number, right? So are we ready? Are we ready? Yes. Yes, we are ready. No, we're actually not ready. I think mentally, like, we're excited. We're ready to take this journey in community oncology. talk to Sandia all the time. Sandia is about as excited as anyone I've ever talked to about AI. She's like, oh, Larry, what about this? What about that, right? And I'm like, these are great ideas. But then I just end up breaking her heart and be like, well, Sandia, unfortunately, we're not ready for that yet. All right. And so I think there's a lot of things that AI could do for us if we had certain things in place, infrastructure, resourcing, time. One of the biggest barriers that we have is the EMR, right? And I'm calling Flatiron out here. I'm calling iKnowMed out here too as well. But between those two companies, they have 60% of the market in community oncology. They are both extremely archaic EMRs. They are ill-equipped to embrace this new technology. I can only speak for the Flatiron side because obviously iKnowMed is predominantly U.S. oncology, but Flatiron doesn't even have AI on their roadmap, really. They kind of do. They're like, oh, we're thinking about this, but they're not committed to anything. They're not trying to implement anything. And that makes it very difficult for us as practices to also implement stuff. If our EMR is not embracing this technology, if our EMR is not making the certain avenues available to us as a practice to be able to integrate this technology, we're kind of stuck dead in the water, right? And I've got Andy here. He's going to talk on a panel later. And a lot of what Andy and I talk about on a regular basis is how do we work around the EMR? I mean, that's I feel like, and Andy, I don't know how you feel, that's like 90% of my job. How do I get the doctors what they need in spite of the EMR, right? And so that's the biggest problem that we have in community oncology, in my opinion. Lack of resources. Academic centers tend to have interns. They have computer programming students. They have all these people that they can sort of just grab and say, hey, we got a project we want you to work on, right? And there's really no overhead for them because these people are willing to do it for the experience, put it on their resume, things like that. And then they have tons of professors and all that on faculty that have the knowledge to be able to do these things. Well, we don't. You guys are seeing patients every day, right? Like you don't have the opportunity to stop and become an expert, go get your master's in computer science, learn how to code, all that stuff so that we can have an AI expert at Tennessee Oncology. You guys just don't have the bandwidth to do that, right? And so we just don't have the resources to be able to do the things that we need to do to implement something like AI quickly. We're going to work there. We're going to work on it, but it's not going to be at the same pace as an academic institution. I'll give you an example. I was on this ASCO call yesterday, and again, it's all these, really prestigious MD Anderson, Brown, UC Santa Barbara, et cetera. And they're all talking about, well, we've already got clinical decision implemented, but how do we make sure that it's giving us the right recommendations? And I'm like, I just want my doctors to be able to type a note without having to type it, right? Let's just start simple here, right? We can't even do that. So the divide between us and academia is going to be big, but that's okay. We'll figure out how we're going to get there. What is the path that we can take? So just some things that we're doing now. Just go ahead and put this up here. So palliative care. We built an algorithm, Sandia, mainly with IP here, but she and I together, we built this large algorithm that technically would fall under machine learning. It's a little bit of a loose term. Again, going back to all these terms are kind of thrown around. But I would consider it to be, like the baby steps to AI, right? It's one of the first big things that we did at Tennessee Oncology where, we identified patients based on an algorithm. ED risk and working with Garrett, I think he may have already taken off, but working with Garrett One Oncology, we built a algorithm to try to identify patients who might be at risk for going to the hospital. Come to find out, it's actually really easy to tell who's going to the hospital. It's just, were they in the hospital like less than 30 days ago, then chances are they're probably going to the hospital again. But there are other factors too. Genetic testing, that's something that Stephen and I built. He helped me, come up with the clinical criteria. We built it into the data warehouse, and we're able to now every week, we send out emails to our physicians to tell them, hey, here are the potential patients. You might want to think about sending for genetic testing. Lung cancer screening, that's coming soon. We got a few data quality issues we're trying to work through, but what is widely a manual process right now, we're going to build into an algorithm and identify patients to the physicians, just like we do with genetic testing, to say, hey, you might want to look at this patient, might be a good candidate for lung cancer screening. And then Chip, I know Mike Byrne was here, I think I see you back there, worked with him on building an algorithm to try to identify Chip patients, from Tom and Neha's molecular database over at Oncology. We're on the cusp with that one. Mike and I have had a little bit of trouble getting hooked up with our schedules, but we're right there on that. So some things that we've already done and implemented. Ambient AI, this is sort of what I consider to be low-hanging fruit. I hope it's something that we're going to be able to do very soon. Again, we're a little bit handicapped by our EMR because we're not able to integrate any sort of ambient AI into OncoEMR. But there may be some workarounds that we can do. There may be some physicians who are willing to do the step it takes to do ambient AI. But basically ambient meaning you have an AI listen to what you're saying. So imagine you're a physician, for those of you that aren't. For those of you that are, then you can just play along. You're in the room seeing a patient right now. Your workflow is probably one of two things. One, you're in there, you're trying to talk to him, you're trying to be attentive, and then you've got to go back, and before you forget everything, you got to type your note out real quick, right? Like before you see the next patient. Or because you're probably not going to do a very good job with that, you take your laptop into the room and you sit there and type while you're talking to the patient, right? Neither is what I would say satisfying to the physician. So what if you took your laptop or your phone into the room, you just sort of set it on the table, and you actually talk to your patient relaxed, not thinking about, oh, I've got to get back to my note before I see the next patient. And that AI is listening and it's typing your note for you. Now, ideal world, it would go straight into the EMR, you would approve it, make any edits, whatever. The way we'll have to do it is it'll be a copy and paste workflow. So you'll do it on your phone or on your laptop, then you'll have to copy and paste it into OncoEMR. Probably still a major time saving. So those of you physicians that are interested in that, please reach out to me. I think we are looking at maybe trying to pilot here pretty soon on that. But that's a big use case for ambient AI. I'm talking to Dr. Dixon, another huge gap and potential use case is our MA documentation, right? And I think as physicians, you guys have all sort of witnessed the gaps in the MA documentation, in the medical history, in the medication list. If we can use AI to help us make those more accurate, I think that again will be a big job satisfier for you. Not to mention that our data is much cleaner. We're able to do things a lot more efficiently. And then something that we're already doing, we implemented Zoom. I think I saw Luke back there. He just helped launch Zoom across the company. One of the big features for Zoom is using AI as a scribe for meetings. And I can already tell you, for me, I don't have a meeting without it, right? Because have the meeting, about 2 minutes after the meeting's over, I get an email says, hey, here's your meeting minutes. It's summarized everything just about perfectly. May have to make a few tweaks here or there. I always love that it calls Ricky Richard. Anytime we have a meeting with him, yeah. So it's like Richard said, and so that's really funny. But so ambient AI is a big thing, and like I said, I think low-hanging fruit, something that we can move on pretty quick, even with some of the limitations that we have. Chatbots. This is another exciting one. We just launched our new website recently, and I think some of the questions around sort of patient satisfaction and interaction, where can we utilize chatbots on the website to be able to manage some things. It's going to start simple and no problem. Like patient gets on there, says, hey, can you tell me my clinic's phone number? Can you tell me the address? Give me directions to the clinic. We're going to start there. We're hoping that at some point we can get to some of these more, complicated use cases. Telephone triage, they get on the website. So, there's a button that says, report a symptom. They go in, they push that button, and then the chatbot asks them, hey, so what's going on today? They enter, I'm having nausea. I've got a temperature of 104. Oh, great. Do you have any Compazine or whatever, whatever the algorithm is or the pathway is that we decide to put in there. There's a lot of inherent questions that Dr. Dixon's going to talk about when we get to legal and ethics, and I will get into that right now. Appointment changes. Another one, we're sort of handicapped by the EMR, but, like just sort of what I view to be just sort of out-of-the-box functionality with a chatbot is, a patient should be able to go on and say, hey, I want to reschedule my appointment. I'm not able to come in today. Can I reschedule this for next week? Able to do it through the chatbot without having to call into the clinic to make that happen. And then new patient intake, another big one that we think that could be really, really helpful with the chatbot. Patient, especially ones that are self-referred, go on the website, say, hey, I want to see Dr. Shepard, for my iron deficiency, anemia, and then, we can sort of take care of all that through the chatbot instead of putting that burden on the new patient intake team. So some things that we could look at for chatbots that I think are very real, and it's something that we can do pretty soon. And then unstructured data. So this is probably something I think we're really close on. Andy's been working on this a lot at Oncology. I'm talking to a group out of Duke about helping us with some facts recognition. But, on top of just all the structured data we have the MD notes, we have the faxes, we have a lot of things, the imaging reports, where all this data is coming in and we don't have it in discrete data fields that we can really do a whole lot with right now. So as we continue to build more and more complex algorithms, we need access to this data, again, so that we can get the relevant data to the physicians at the point of care. That's the big thing. So that's pretty much it for my talk. Hope I didn't bore you guys too much. Yeah, Steve, what's up?
As we think about tonight, hearing that, Larry, I would urge us all, because you just inspired me, to think about how TNOC can be that bridge between idea that sounds sexy but might not be practical, and then how to take that actually to where patients live. And we have Andy in the room. We have all these thinkers here from both ONC, TNOC, and then our guest here in between. And I think that's going to be our sweet spot with AI. And I applaud you and Natalie for kind of bringing us together to discuss that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Stephen. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, we do have to figure out, Tennessee Oncology, we want to be leaders in oncology. I think we want to be a leader in the community oncology AI space. And yeah, you're exactly right, Steve. But what can we do? And it may not be sexy. Ambient AI isn't that sexy, and you're not going to, publish a lot of papers with that or anything like that. But it's going to improve a lot of quality of life. It's going to improve documentation. It's going to improve our ability to get some data out of those notes. So, well, again, not sexy, but practical and much needed.